Welcome to the John freaking Muir Pod. Lace up those boots and sling on the pack for a romp through trails, short and long. With your host and Renaissance man, Doc. It's time to embrace the suck.
Welcome back to another week on the trail, dirtbags and hiker trash. I'm Doc, and this is the John freaking Muir Pod. Let's start off with a reminder. If you are enjoying the podcast, take just a minute, help us out, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. And if you're not enjoying the pod, well, just go ahead and keep that to yourself. All right, let's get to this week's guest, who is a freshly minted Triple Crowner. Welcome to the John freaking Muir Pod, Eddie Janicki. How's it going, Eddie?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Did I get the last name right?
Janicki. Yeah,
Janicki. Yeah, I usually cover that before we go on air, but I was so excited to start talking tonight, I just went with it. Janicki, got it.
Yep.
Okay. Hey, Eddie, since you're a Triple Crowner, you've got a lot of miles under those, I'm assuming, trail runners. During all those miles, did you happen to pick up a trail name?
Yeah, my trail name was Bard, or is Bard still. I got that a couple days into the PCT in 2018. That was my first trail.
Mm-hmm.
A guy gave it to me because I was carrying a guitar, and I carried a guitar for the whole hike. But it was funny at the beginning. I also had like a harmonica with the neck stands and some other stuff along with it, and a bunch of other heavier things that I ended up getting rid of, but the guitar remained. But anyways, initially he called me One Man Band, and I didn't like that name. It was too long. So he was like, all right, I'll think of something else. And then he called me Bard the next day. So I was good enough to stick. It's not the greatest name I've ever heard, but I liked it enough.
Yeah, I like it. That's nice. I mean, you could have gone with One Man Band. You could have gone with Minstrel. Could have gone with Rockstar. I mean, there's some other ones out there too.
Yeah. There's a lot of different ways you could go with it.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard of a couple other bards, which makes me like it less, but that's all good.
You kind of want to be unique out there, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. Hey, I understand that we have a common friend.
Yeah. Ginger Balls. Yeah, he was. We met on the CDT, and the first time I heard your podcast was, I think, the first time he was on. And that would have been right after we both completed the CDT in 2020, I think. So
he is hilarious. He is so fun to talk to. He's been on multiple times.
Yeah, he's just one of the best guys I've ever met. One of the most interesting, and definitely one of the most badass in the hiking world for sure. But yeah.
Yeah, I've been trying to get him on for a fourth time. We've kind of been playing this whole calendar game where we've got something scheduled, then it falls through. We've got something scheduled, falls through, back and forth. He's living his best life. I'm amazed at what he has done in addition to just being a Triple Crowner. Now he's actually doing, dog sledding stuff, up in Alaska, which is just crazy. He has no experience in this, but he's done it now for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Where he's caught on with a group up there and is just loving it. So I really want to talk to him about what he's been up to.
Yeah, it's incredible. I love following his adventures outside of hiking, and yeah.
Okay. So you have listened to some episodes of the John freaking Muir Pod. Do you have a favorite episode?
I've listened to the Ginger Balls one, and then I just listened to one this week to just kind of refamiliarize myself. I think it was Kate. She didn't have a trail name. Kate in the Wild. Yeah.
Kate the Wild, right? Yes.
That was a good episode.
Oh, thanks. Thanks. Yeah, she was pretty entertaining to talk to.
Yeah, it was funny for me because I actually just met a girl named Kate on the AT, and she also didn't have a trail name, but it was a different girl. But I was like, oh, is this the same Kate? Can't be. But yeah, so small world there.
Her trail name is now Just Kate. Just Kate, 2 words.
Yeah, it's official.
Yep. So I only ask if you listen to the podcast. I want to make sure that you are aware of a segment at the end of the episode called the Pro Tip Insight of the Week. It's where I will turn to you, Bard, and ask you to share some trail wisdom with our listeners to make their next outdoor experience even better. So don't be surprised.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay.
The Must Bring Gear Review.
Bard, another feature we've been doing this season is the Must Bring Gear Review, sponsored by the ultralight backpacking gear company 6 Moon Designs. And here's how it works. If you were to let a stranger pack your bag with pretty much generic gear for a multi-day hike, what is the one specific piece of gear you would insist on being packed? And if you've got a particular brand for that specific piece of gear, even better. So, Bard, what do you have to have out there? What's your must-bring piece of gear?
Well, there's a lot of things. It's hard to pick one because you don't want to bring like a good t-shirt and leave the shoes at home. But I would say like my go-to piece of gear is my hat. It's the same hat I'm wearing. In general, a good hat that you like, I think, is really important. Early on in the PCT, I started with like one of those straw like sun hats, and the first really windy day, it got ripped to shreds. So then I switched to this hat that I already had, but I hadn't been wearing, and it has really good like strap tightness on the back, so you can leave it on in the back of a pickup truck on a hitch or whatever. It's not going anywhere once it's tight. So yeah, that would be my go-to, I think.
All right, lean in. What's on the front of that hat?
It's Schweitzer Ski Resort in Idaho.
Okay.
That's one of my favorite places to ski.
So what is the criteria for hat? I mean, should it be a ball cap? Should it be a hat that is, has a wide brim all the way around that protects from the sun, protects your ears and your neck, or what's your preference?
I think it should be like a ball cap style. This one's like a flatter bill, and it has like the different panel design than like a standard baseball hat. But it's important in the back to not have that brim, because mine would like hit up against my backpack. But if you're someone who wears one of those like shorter ultralight packs, a wide brim hat's fine probably. But yeah, sun protection, comfort. I mean, yeah, it's just a nice thing to have, I think. And for me, as my hair gets longer, it's nice to just throw on a hat. Like long hair is kind of a maintenance issue, so I've been wearing hats a lot more lately.
Keep it all contained.
Yeah.
Yeah, understood. Now, one of the things that's popped up the last few years has been this whole trend of sun hoodies. Do you ascribe to that bit of apparel?
Oh yeah, well, I've seen a few of those, like the Melanzana, and I actually have a really nice hoodie from Appalachian Gear Company.
Mm-hmm.
They sent me one before the AT, which was super cool. But I honestly didn't wear it that much. It was too hot on the AT, too humid. So I would mostly wear that in towns for comfort, not so much for like sun protection. Is that what you mean? It's like a sun protective hoodie, or like?
Yeah, some, with the wide brim hat that goes all the way around, you get your neck protected and everything else. And if you go with a ball cap, what I've done is worn the ball cap and the sun hoodie, and you don't have to worry about, spending so much time slathering on the sunscreen.
That's good for the back of the neck. Yeah, good point.
Yeah. Also, if you have a long sleeved sun hoodie, you don't have to slather up the bug juice or the sunscreen on the arms either. So. Right. Yeah, no, that's a good point. Okay.
It's the hiking pole.
On to the next segment, the hiking pole, and that is pole spelled P-O-L-L, like a survey, not the pole that you hold in your hand while you're trekking out there. And this is a 7-question survey, Bard, that's going to help me determine your level of sanity. At the end of this, I'm going to give you a score between 1 and 100, with 1 being completely insane and 100 being completely sane. So the higher the score, the more sane you are.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay, and you haven't seen these questions. You don't know what these questions are. I have to tell you that there's an automatic 20-point deduction for triple crowners, because there's some level of insanity involved with hiking that many miles.
Right. Okay.
So you disagree with that?
No disagreement there. At least it's not 20 per trail.
That's true. That's true. Just a stock 20. So highest score you can get is 80. Ready to go?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Okay. What would your family and friends give you in terms of a sanity score? If I asked them.
Probably around 50.
50, right there on the midpoint.
Somewhere in the middle. Yeah.
Okay. Do you have a boss? How about your boss?
The boss would probably be higher or more insane, so lower, maybe like 25 or 30.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well,
That
because
guy-
work friends and bosses, they don't understand the whole deal as much as my family and friends do. So they're entitled to think I'm insane. That's fine.
Okay. I thought maybe you put a better foot forward at work and pretended to be a little more sane. So that's why the score might go up.
Well, yeah, that's a good point. So maybe I'm back at 50 again.
All right. First question. Very easy one. Trekking poles or no trekking poles out there?
No poles. Yeah. Hard
Oh.
no on that one.
Hard? No, you've done all 3 American long trails with no poles.
Yep. I never had poles. On the CDT, there's a lot of dangerous river crossings, so I would just find like a temporary stick or walking stick, and then once I cross the river, toss it and move on. But yeah, hiking poles, they really don't do anything. They help with your balance, but I have really good balance. So, but it's a myth that they take weight off your knees and back. They really don't do that. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's better to just develop more natural strength and better posture without poles. But it was a little awkward, I guess, because like my hands were free. So I think somewhere early on the PCT, I started just carrying 2 smart water bottles in my hands. And that worked good for me because I don't like using camelbacks. So yeah, I just had water handy all the time. And
Okay. Now, of the folks that you encountered out on the trails, what percentage of people were without poles and were with poles?
It's very rare to see no poles, so it's always a cool thing when I see another hiker. Like, we'll just give a little like fist bump, like no poles club, nice. I had a buddy on the PCT named Meech. He comes to mind. He was another no poles guy. Trying to think of anyone else, but yeah, definitely rare. I would say over 90% have their poles and really like them. I don't want to knock it for people who like them because it does develop a good rhythm for people, I think. And I ski a lot, so I use ski poles, and I understand like the rhythmic aspect of it. But yeah, both strategies are good.
Yeah, I have to say that that 90% of that holds true for the guests that I've asked this question of. I think 90% of them say, yeah, I use poles. You're in the minority there. All right, question number 2. Boots or trail runners?
Definitely trail runners. Yeah, all the way. My favorite ones are Nike. I forget the model. They're like Pegasus Trail Runner 36 or some number, but those are the best ones I've ever had by far. I've had that same pair 3 times now, and I love them. They're so good.
Now, when I've had
North Face as well, and some Solomons that are pretty good too. But yeah.
Okay. Now, when you get started hiking, I mean, did you feel the pressure to conform and wear boots, and you just kind of learn from experience, or you just went straight, started with trail runners?
No, the shoe I started with on the PCT was more of like a middle of the road. It was a North Face hiking shoe. It wasn't like a full on like hunting boot or something, but it was more of like a shoe. So, but then yeah, after a couple months, it's like, this doesn't make sense. Really, the main question that people need to ask themselves is, what's most comfortable, what works for me the best? And maybe that's shoes. I met a girl on the AT who hiked in Crocs, and she's done multiple long trails, and she hiked in Crocs, and I thought she was crazy. But then like she's like, I've hiked this and this. I'm like, oh, okay. Like I'm not not knocking it. I'm just, you don't see that every day.
Yeah, Crocs. That's an automatic 40-point deduction on the hiking pole.
Yeah, that's I mean, that's insane to me. And I met her in New Hampshire where it's like really steep and rocky, and I couldn't imagine slipping around on the rocks and those Crocs. But
what was her trail name? Do you remember?
I don't remember. I don't remember. No, it might come to me. Yeah.
It had nothing to do with footwear.
It was nothing to do with the Crocs. No.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
that's surprising because that would just jump out as a possible trail name
Yeah,
there.
but she was hiking with her uncle. He had joined her for like that last month on trail or whatever it was. But yeah, nice girl.
All right. Well,
Plus,
Croc Girl, if you're listening and you hiked with your uncle, was it on the AT you said?
Yeah, AT.
Yeah, Croc Girl, if you hiked with your uncle on the AT, reach out via social media. Let's get you on the podcast. I want to talk to somebody who's done a full through hike with Crocs on. That's
Yeah.
be a crazy story.
Yeah.
All right. Question number 3. Your preferred shelter system. Tent, tarp, hammock, bivy, or cowboy camping?
I would say tent is definitely the preferred option. I did cowboy camp a lot on the PCT, which is always a blast. But that's definitely funner if you're with like a hiker family or other people. The tent is just the best of everything. Like my tent, at least you can leave the lobby door open and still get a good view of the stars or the sunset or the cliff or whatever. So you can have your like freedom, but you can still strip down and air out inside with some privacy. And yeah, tent's the way to go. And it's a tent is nice because you can sprawl out with your gear, and when you're packing up in the morning, you won't forget anything because it's all in your tent. Like I've left certain things behind cowboy camping before because it was like you were sprawled out in a different way than you were used to. A lot of it's just routine, and the tent is routine for me. So
yeah, I talked to Area 52 who was doing the PCT. He was bound and determined to do cowboy camping the whole way. That changed. Wow. I think that changed he was on one of the Sky Islands in the desert part. I don't know if it was, I'm not sure. Maybe it was San Jacinto. He woke up in the middle of the night with a scorpion on his face. So he changed his story after that. So
yeah.
All right. Hey, your preferred sleeping system, sleeping bag or quilt? This is question number 4.
Sleeping bag. Yeah, I had the same sleeping bag on all 3 trails, so that's in the 3 timers club. But it was a little bit big and warm for the AT. It's a 0-degree bag, but I like having it just for the cushion and the comfort. I've never been like it. Never been like an ultralight guy.
You don't feel too constricted in the sleeping bag?
No, it's okay. I can zip down one side all the way and kind of sprawl out, and a lot of nights I would just sleep on top of it, But yeah, I never went with the quilt, but I saw some cool ones that people had that made me think about it. Yeah. Okay.
Question number 5. When it comes to food, are you a stove guy, cold soak, or stoveless?
I would say stove definitely, but it changes depending on depending on the timing of it. The first trail on the PCT, I liked having a cooked meal every day, even for lunch. Most of the days I would do lunch and dinner. But then by the CDT, I was just cooking dinner on the stove. And then by the AT, I was still cooking dinners on the stove, but really getting sick of it where it was just kind of a chore. And a lot of nights I would just eat the same food all day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And it was just snack food, bars and beef sticks and stuff. But yeah, I like having a stove definitely. the cold soaking, that's never appealed to me. I don't know about you, but yeah, I understand stoveless for the like um the once you're like kind of streamlining your gear, that makes sense to go stoveless. But
Mhm. Now the bars, don't the bars get old? The bars, I mean, for me, whenever I have a bar, it's always a chore to chew
yeah,
that thing.
they do for some reason. Cliff bars never got old to me. There was enough variety and flavors, and but yeah, I definitely crossed a bunch off my list that you get sick of and you never want to look at them again.
Hmm.
But then, I mean, there's so much variety. Like my cousin Whitney sent me a care package when I was in New Jersey this summer, and just because like she was someone who didn't regularly send me packages, she had these different bars there that I'd never heard of. She's like, "Oh, I like these one that I go to the gym or whatever," and I was like, "Oh, these are great." And I don't even remember what they were called, but it's nice. You just have to always be switching it up, whatever your food outlook is.
Yeah, you got to have some variety. I have to imagine that anything that you eat straight for 4 or 5 months, you're never going to eat that again. You're just going to get sick of it.
Yeah, yeah. No more ramen and tuna for me for the rest of my life. I'm done with it, unless the tuna's fresh caught and it's in some sushi.
Nice. All right. Question number 6. Is life better above or below the tree line?
Ooh, that's a good question. Um, I would say above. Like, yeah, definitely above. But I mean, where are we talking below tree line? Like at the beach, like along the ocean, or like in the woods below tree line?
Well, if we're talking about tree line, we're probably talking about in the woods. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, no, definitely above then. I Some of my best memories on all the trails were views above tree line on the PCT and CDT, and the AT I'm working on just shunning out of my memory because it was pretty monotonous for most of the time. But yeah, definitely above for me.
There are some spectacular views above the tree line, especially in the Sierras.
Oh yeah, yeah, it's unbeatable. And Washington, I'm in Washington. I love it up here, and yeah, definitely some amazing sunsets and sunrises, and fresh snow, and yeah.
Hmm.
Are you above or below?
Oh,
You're
I'm above. I'm above.
okay.
Yeah, definitely. There is a just a pure beauty
Yeah,
um above the tree line with the high alpine lakes and the granite and kind of the desolation.
yeah, absolutely.
All right, last question. What's more important, pack weight or luxury items?
For me, it's definitely comfort over pack weight because I've always had like kind of a heavier pack. Um, on the PCT, I started really heavy, especially with having the guitar and it being my first hike. I had other items that I ended up ditching after the first week, but my pack still stayed heavy after that. It was probably like 40-pound base weight, I want to say. And then for the CDT and 80 or 80, I streamlined it a little bit better. I was probably around 20 or 25-pound base weight. But yeah, comfort all the way. I think whatever weight you're carrying, you get used to. So, I mean, I've met the ultralight hikers, and they still complain at water breaks about something. So, like, what's the deal? What's the point? I mean, I'd rather have a big pack and have everything that you need and um, carry excess water, and yeah.
So are the ultralighters, when they complain, are they complaining about that 6-pound pack on their back, or are they complaining that they don't have some kind of comfort item?
Oh yeah, well, it's probably a little bit of both. I'm not thinking of anyone in particular, but yeah, I'm just playing. But um, yeah, I think it's better to go uh, slower in general too, because I mean that's how you see stuff in life is just going slow and walking. So like the fast and lightweight thing, I was definitely on the other end of the spectrum from that. But
Okay. Well, let me take your answers. We're gonna put them through the algorithm we have here. We're gonna say I do some math. I got to carry the 2. Got to divide by √3. Gonna multiply by pi. And we're gonna adjust for the atmospheric pressure at the top of Rainier because I know you've done that a couple of times. And I come out with a score on the Sandy scale of 48.
Ooh, 48. Okay.
48.
I was almost right on there.
Pretty darn close. Pretty darn close. I have a feeling your friends and family would not be surprised at that score.
Yeah, I'll take that. I like that. 48.
Okay. You know what? I would suggest getting a ball cap and having that stitched on the front, 48, and you can wear that on your next hike.
Yeah. Yeah. There you go.
It'd be a good conversation piece. You could talk about the John Freaking Muir pod.
Yeah.
Be a win-win. All right. Hey, before we get too far down the trail, Bard, let's back up a little bit. I'd love to hear about your background, where you grew up, what kinds of sports and hobbies you played as a kid, and how did you get involved in the thru hiking cult? What moment in your life made it apparent that you would love to spend months on end in the dirt, sleeping outside?
Yeah. Well, I hadn't thought about it at all. I didn't even know what the PCT was. But then my best friend from college was thinking about hiking it. And this would be like 3 years after we had both graduated. Because his brother is also a Triple Crowner now. His brother had hiked the AT and was getting ready to do the PCT. So I started planning it with them, and it was all 3 of us. We stuck together for the majority of the trail, which was great, having like a hiker family the whole time. So that was my first introduction to any long distance hiking. But to back up further, I was always really outdoorsy as a kid, and our family was always in the outdoors, just skiing and mountain biking and hiking, mostly like day hikes or weekend long trips. But and my grandpa was a logger. The logging company he started is still in operation to this day, in Cedro Woolley. So in high school, I worked some logging jobs for a friend of his, not for that company, but so my first work experience was in the outdoors, and I just loved it. And I also grew up partially in the San Juan Islands, if you're familiar where those are, like northern Washington, spending a lot of time out on the ocean, but also in the woods on the islands, like just building stupid little trails with my cousins and stuff like that. So all that stuff as a kid, like, adds up in a way that you don't really like comprehend. So I didn't know what these trails were, but when the time came to think about it, it was like, oh yeah, I'm ready for something like that. And I didn't even know that I would be, So in that sense, I'm thankful for my buddy Eric for even inviting me or thinking about it himself and then thinking about me.
So
yeah.
What was it like growing up on the island? I mean, how big was the town? And was it well populated, or?
It's very low population, but you can actually drive a car to it. So okay. They diked a road out to the island in 1932. So it's accessible by car, but it's still technically in the San Juans. But I say I partially grew up there because it was mostly in the summers, and then during the school year I would live down in Woodinville and Seattle area. So it was like a back and forth life. But yeah, a lot of my outdoor influence comes from those summers. Absolutely.
Nice. Any brothers and sisters?
Yeah, just one brother, identical twin, actually. So.
Oh, a twin. All right.
Yeah. We've been on some epic hikes together too. He's very athletic and outdoorsy himself. So, yeah.
Okay. I'm always interested to hear if the siblings have a similar interest in the outdoors and in doing long distance thru hiking.
Yeah.
So, a lot of people I talk to, their family thinks they're crazy and it would have, nothing to do with what they're doing. But sounds like your brother's of a similar mind.
Yeah, he is. He hiked the short section on all three trails with me, which was really cool. But yeah, I definitely almost broke him a couple times with there was yeah, he hiked on my probably my rainiest hiking day ever was on the AT this summer, and he was with me for that stretch. It was in North Carolina, and it just rained, piss rain for like 72 hours straight, like no joke. And yeah, he was with me for all that. It was a grind. We were not in a good mood at the end of that, but yeah. So he's been through some good experiences.
Now, did you ever pull any tricks on other hikers out there with the two of you? Are you identical twins?
Yeah, we're identical. I don't think we pulled any tricks, but yeah, no. But it was definitely confusing sometimes because you go these long stretches on trail where you're like leapfrogging with people, and they'd be like, "Wait a sec, I just yeah." You're already like kind of spacey when you're out on trail, just thinking.
Right, that's great. Now I knew a pair of twins in high school. One of them liked math, the other one liked English, and
Hey,
so
that's
one
me and my
one would
brother.
go to both math classes, and the other one would go to both English classes,
Yeah,
and the teachers were none the wiser.
yeah. No, my brother Luke, I had him edit all my English papers in college, so I was an engineering major.
Okay, which brings me to my next question, which is how do you pay the bills? How do you finance your adventures?
Yeah. Um, so my degree was in civil engineering, and I'm now a project engineer for a general contracting company in Seattle. So, but yeah, for the first two trails, I was working for different companies, and I had to quit my job to do each of those two. But this third time around, they were really cool about it, and they just called it a leave of absence. And I'm getting ready to go back to work here pretty soon, in a few weeks. But yeah, to pay to finance the hikes, I just saved up, and once you're okay with the decision of okay, I'm gonna live without a income for 6 months, it's actually very freeing, and I recommend people to do it that way if they can because it's nice to have some financial comfort when you're on trail. It's nice to be able to stay in a motel or eat a good meal and not worry too much about it as long as it's within your budget.
Right. Now, for folks out there who are listening and who may be considering doing the a long trail like the PCT or the AT, what is that on average? What would you say that would cost somebody to undertake that venture?
Um, I would say about 8 grand on average. I think the PCT and the CDT were somewhere around there, both. The AT was more expensive for me. I felt like I was staying in more motels alone without people to split the cost.
Mhm.
So I think that's what adds it up. And if you take double 0 days, you're going to be spending money in town. So
Right. Now, I think that there's probably a lot of, I'm going to use this, air quotes on this. There's a lot of normal people who are listening to this, who have an interest in the outdoors and are,
right,
dreaming of what may be possible. And they think to themselves, how can you possibly leave your job for 5 or 6 months? How can you be unemployed, take that kind
right,
of risk? And I think I think now in today's society, after the pandemic and everything else, or in the tail end of the pandemic, we're still in however you want to define it, what we've gone through the last few years, there is such a staffing crisis across the country where people have,
right,
made decisions that they're gonna in terms of their work, they're going to do it this way. They're going to work remote. They're going to work part time. Whatever their decisions may be. There are so many openings. I think the fact that we have a staffing crisis and there's so many openings, that might even lend itself. This environment might lend itself to people who can then kind of take a flyer, say, I'm gonna resign. I'm gonna quit my job. I'm gonna hike for 5 or 6 months, and I'm gonna come back. And there's going to be a position somewhere for me
right,
in the
right.
field that I'm in.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think, and then the pandemic was probably good just overall in making people really internally question what value is in their life, whether it's exercise or work versus play, and how do you meld those two things. Yeah, I consider myself lucky that I got my mind thinking about work-life balance before all that. And in construction engineering, it's nice because you can kind of go by the life of a job. So like my first job out of college was 3 years long just on one project in downtown Seattle. So at the end of that 3 years, I was kind of at a natural mental shift in my work anyway. So it was like a natural time to lend my mind to thinking about other opportunities and stuff. But yeah, no, definitely. But another thing about the pandemic that was funny was I missed the whole pandemic. Basically, I was on the CDT. So like I told you, this is my first time using Zoom. I missed the whole work from home Zoom culture. I was like, my girlfriend's calling like, there's riots in Seattle and you're not going to believe what's going on. And I'm like going through the desert in New Mexico. I'm like, that's great. But I mean, out of sight, out of mind. But,
keep on trucking. That's right. Keep on trekking.
Yep.
So, all right. Hey, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about some of your adventures and if you encountered any type 2 fun out there. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We're talking to Eddie Janicki, aka Bard, and we're going to get to some stories now. This is my favorite part of the podcast, where the guests share some of their adventures out there on the trail, some memorable moments, highlights, lowlights, type 2 fun. It's your turn now, Bard, to entertain us with some of the stories. Now, I understand that you kind of got your start, or maybe some of your big accomplishments early on involved Mount Rainier.
Yeah, so before all the hiking began, Mount Rainier, that was right after I graduated from college. I was home for about a year, and me and the same friend who went on to hike the PCT with me and him were like really wanting to hike Mount Rainier. So yeah, we summited in 2016. We did it the guided route, which was because we were inexperienced, and that was a good way to do it. But yeah, that was really, really fun and really kind of one of the benchmark, like eye-opening things that would lead up to hiking. But yeah, after doing that one, I continued on to summit the rest of the volcanoes in Washington. So there's 4 others besides Rainier. And yeah, I just knocked those out over the next few years. A couple of them were between the PCT and CDT, I think. Yeah.
Okay. Now, I went to Seattle this past summer, and
nice.
Mount Rainier is a fixture in the background. Yeah. It's always, I mean, you can tell where you are, depending on where Mount Rainier is on your compass here.
Yeah.
And so it is your, what you would think of with an imposing, majestic mountain. It looks like it. I mean, it's got that shape to it.
It's big. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's not as big, it's not as tall, not as high as Mount Whitney. But
right.
Mount Whitney, I mean, if you were standing in Lone Pine and you're trying to pick out Mount Whitney, you'd have a difficult time picking out which one is Mount Whitney. There is no mistake about which one is Mount Rainier.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, there's no mistake in it. That's like the prominence, they call it. Like it's a very prominent peak. And on certain days, like if it's a clear day, it looks humongous. And then certain other days, it looks smaller. It kind of comes and goes. But yeah, it's definitely a fixture. It was, I knew it'd be a cool thing to be able to, because I'm looking at it every day. So it's cool to say like, oh yeah, I've been to the top. And yeah.
Yeah, I think that's interesting that when you live in the neighborhood of something and it's on the horizon and you see it on a daily basis, it's almost like it calls to you. I mean, it kind of wiggles its way into your brain and you become fixated with it. I mean, we've got a couple of local small prominences, hills, top, high hills. I'm not gonna call them mountains, but high hills in my looking out from my backyard. And it calls to me, and I end up going on that trail and doing that so often. It just kind of wiggles into your brain.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Now in 2018 is your PCT through hike. You started with the PCT. When you started, did you know that you were going to want to do all three, or was this kind of like, let's see how this goes?
I thought that it would be the only one. Well, I mean, because in the beginning I didn't know anything about through hiking. I didn't know that was a thing at all, and I didn't know what the PCT was. So I just thought it would be just one trail and then move on with life kind of thing. But it was such a rewarding experience. It was incredible in every way. And then after a couple years of working and getting back to life, I just started getting the itch again. You know, you start getting the wind under your feet and feeling like getting back out there. So, and then it was like, okay, I'll do the CDT because that was the next most epic one in my eyes, and the most appealing, with mountains and true desert and everything. It was, so that one was kind of calling out to me. And then but still I didn't think I would hike all three, but I knew that doing the AT is kind of a requirement after you've done the first two like that. So, but in my mind I was like, oh, I'll get to the AT at some point in life, maybe when I'm 60. You know, I had zero desire to do the AT, and my suspicions were confirmed of not really wanting to do it. But I had some fun on the AT, but yeah, I didn't intend on hiking all three. It just turned out that way.
Now, Bard, there are some thru hikers out there who will live and die saying that the AT is the best. It's the oldest, got the most history. That is the best American long trail.
Yeah, they're crazy. They're a number one insane on your scale. I'll tell you, I met a guy the day before I summited Mount Katahdin. I met a guy who it was his 7th time hiking the AT. 7. And he was a great guy. He's super nice. Richard was his name. And but yeah, in my mind I'm like, this guy's crazy. Like, has anyone told him there's other trails out there? But no, I mean, it's I can joke about it all we want, but like it's what you know. Like, to me, Washington has always been the most beautiful place on earth. And to someone who grew up in, you know, North Carolina or Massachusetts, wherever it is, they may have been looking forward to that their whole life, and you can't take that away from them. But I would say that if you if you're just someone who's looking to do a hike and you don't really know, do your research, and if you know it's only going to be one, just do the CDT or do the PCT. Just move past the want to do the easiest one first, quote unquote, because they're all hard. They all have their learning curve about them, and you can work through that. So like, just do which one appeals to you, like scenically and emotionally. And yeah, but if you know you're going to do multiple, then it's okay to start with the AT. And it's a great way because you meet a lot of people, and you don't have to filter as much water and worry about food as much and stuff. So
yeah, let's talk about the differences between the three trails, because I talked to Mr. Fabulous, Derek Lugo, the other night for the second time, and he has just finished the CDT. He had done the AT previously, and he said, and I think Ginger Balls will also attest to this, that the CDT is not an easy trail. He said that if Mr. Fabulous said that if he had done the CDT first, he's not sure he would have finished, let alone try another trail. It might have been end of the road for him. Yeah. So that is a particularly, it's a long trail. I mean, it could go, 3,100 miles, depending on which alternates you take. And it's pretty rustic in some places.
It's an absolute beast in every sense of the word. And at the time it was really difficult, but it's the one I look back on with the most pride. And I love everything about my CDT experience. And yeah, it's so the year me and Ginger Balls did it, that was at the height of the pandemic, right at the beginning. There was no other thru hikers out there. I was adding it up the other day. Like I literally met probably 10 or 12 other Nobos the entire time. And Ginger Balls was one of them. And we only hung out a couple times, but I feel like we were, birds of a feather or fast friends because it was so rare to see other Nobos that like we had met briefly on my first day, but it was just outside my tent. I didn't see him. He like yelled to me and then I forgot about him. And then 3 weeks later, we met on the back porch at Toaster House in Pie Town, New Mexico. And he's like, no way, you're Bard. You're Bard. We met. And I was like, wait, who are you? And so like and then we had a couple more encounters that were just really offhand, but like we got to hang out in the town together. And it was that way with the other thru hikers I met that year, where it was like, wow, we're out here doing it. We're really doing it. And the CDT probably feels that way anyways, because I mean, some of those sections, like the South San Juans in Colorado and the Wind River Range in Wyoming and the Chihuahuan Desert in New Mexico, like it was the most rugged and desolate hiking I've ever done. And so part of you in those moments is like a little scared or angry at the daily grind, but then when you step up and look at the horizon, you're like, wow, I'm out here really doing it. And the PCT, you feel that way a lot too, but there's more people. And the AT, I can honestly say I never felt that. I never felt like, wow, I'm out here doing it. And maybe it's because of the order I did them in, which people can take my bullshit about the AT with a grain of salt, because I did do them in a weird order. But yeah, the AT just it didn't have anything awe-inspiring for me. There were good moments, but yeah.
Yeah, from what I know, and I haven't done the AT, I haven't done the CDT. I've spent some time here and there on sections of the PCT. From what I know from talking to people and reading on stuff, is that CDT very remote, remote, very rugged. You're out there in the middle of nowhere with who knows how many other people in a 20 square mile radius of you. I mean, it is really remote in some places. That you can get that same feel in certain parts of the PCT. You get that feeling of remoteness. But I think the AT, it's there's a lot of population centers pretty close to the trail.
Yeah,
there's lots of towns, just off the trail, a few miles off the trail that you can you can visit and do laundry and everything else in. So it doesn't feel as remote.
Yeah, it's I put it this way to someone one time, like, there was only like 4 or 5 nights on the whole AT where I couldn't hear car traffic of some sort, or like stuff like that kind of stuck with me. And do you know what platinum blazing is?
Platinum blazing? No, I haven't heard that one.
So platinum blazing is if you're like living really luxuriously on trail, like you're staying in the nicest hotel every town. You're going to a spa. I met these 2 ladies in Duncannon, Pennsylvania, in a bar, and that was where I learned the term. They were like, "We're platinum blazing. Like, we have a spa day tomorrow. We're getting pedicures," and I was just laughing like you. I was like, "This is super funny." But like, if you have the money, you could stay in a hostel of some sort almost every night on the AT, like no joke. But I forget where I was going with that. It's just a different trail altogether,
Yeah, if you really want to do platinum blazing, you can do the Camino de Santiago over in Spain.
Yes, yeah.
I hear there's a hostel and a pub, every night. I mean, there's
you
really don't have to. You don't have to carry a tent. You don't have to, carry a lot of stuff. You
just
walk to the next pub and you have a beer and get some dinner and go to sleep on a bed.
Yeah, no, that's definitely on my long list of wanting to do eventually. That'd be a cool one.
Okay. Now, any times out there on any one of these 3 trails where you thought, wow, I have gotten myself into a real situation here?
Yeah. There was, well, there, my mind goes to a million places, but there was several on the CDT alone that were where I had to catch my breath afterwards. And the first one was just this really sketchy snow traverse in the San Juan Mountains. Um, the gut hook comments are really few and far between on the CDT, and in an off year like I was doing, there wasn't like comments ahead of time really to like warn you about these situations. But yeah, there was this mountain pass where was post holing across this traverse, and I wasn't feeling good from the start of it. Just something didn't feel right. But then, like halfway through, I punched through and fell all the way down to my waist, and my backpack caught on the hole that I had made, and I'm just like hanging there, and um, and below my feet, it's just like based off the steepness of the cliff that's next to me, it's a sheer drop, but beneath me. So I tried my best to just calm my body to not dislodge any snow. And I kind of like spider crawled up onto the snow and caught my breath again. And then the whole rest of that traverse, I just spider crawled on all fours. And that's a situation where I was thankful I didn't have poles. I had the water bottles in my hand, but I used them as kind of like ice axes. And I crawled my way across, and that was like a legitimate near death experience.
Yeah, so you kind of distributed your weight by spider crawling, right? You kind of divided your weight in 4 by having 4 points of contact.
Yeah, exactly.
And not having it on just 2 feet and falling through the snow and the ice.
Exactly. Yeah, you want to get big and wide, and yeah, so that was really scary. And then there were some wildlife encounters. The first time I saw a moose was terrifying, just because it was closer than I wanted it to be, and I'd never seen a moose before. That was crazy.
Now, a moose is a large animal. I think it's larger than people realize.
They're big. They are tall. Yeah, really tall and lanky and really unpredictable. I've seen moose now. I had a grizzly bear encounter in Yellowstone, and I would take the grizzly bear over the moose. Like, I don't want to mess with moose in too close of proximity.
That's a good statement. I think that's the right statement. You'd rather have a grizzly than a moose, because I think from the statistics, the moose is the more deadlier animal. I mean, people die more often by run-ins with mooses. Moose. Yeah, I don't know. with moose than they do with grizzly bears each year.
Yeah, no, I believe it. There was one moose in Colorado, like I said, I came around a bend and I spooked it, so I was way too close, and it was snorting and like rearing in the dirt, and I just backed up and gave it its space. But I had my bear spray ready to go. I was ready for it to charge. But
have you heard Jeff Garmire's story about the moose?
No, I don't know who he is.
Legend.
Oh, okay. I've heard the name Legend before.
Legend, yeah. He just set the FKT on the JMT. Did 211 miles in 72 hours and 47 minutes.
Jeez.
But he's a funny guy to talk to. But he talked about when he was doing the Great Western Loop, and he came upon some moose antlers that he thought had been shed. And he was pretty close to a town. He thought, "Oh, this is cool. I'm gonna take these to the town. I'm gonna ship them home because these look good on my wall." Yeah. So he reached down to pick up the moose antlers and found out that they were still attached to a bull moose.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, he was kind of hidden in the foliage. So he spent the next 10-15 minutes zigzagging and hiding behind a tree till I forgot about him.
That's crazy. Wow. Yeah. I didn't get that close.
Okay. Any other moments of oh my gosh or type 2 fun you want to share?
There's a bunch. I could go on forever, but there was another like kind of it wasn't as scary as that first one on the CDT. And this was also in Colorado. There was a river crossing where I reached where the supposed bridge was supposed to be, and there was no bridge. And after a while looking, I saw that it had just been washed out and like abandoned on the other side of the riverbank that I had to get to. So I spent an hour like going up and down the trail trying to find a good spot to cross. I was hoping for a spot where I could just jump across because it was kind of like a meandering river where I was, and it was snowing. There's snow on the ground at this time, and it's like an hour till it's going to be getting dark. So I'm like, I can camp and look more, or I can just go for it. And so I just went for it at a bend that I found, and it seemed shallow enough for like the first half of my crossing, and then I realized that it dropped way off where the bend got fast, the current got fast. So when I realized that I might be going in the drink, I took my backpack off and like slung it all the way across to the other side. That was reachable. Threw my phone and everything over, and then I had to swim the rest of the way. It was probably like 15 or 20 feet. And that was exhilarating. That was crazy. Just cause I was like, whoa, it was kind of fun. Like I knew that I wasn't going to like die, but, I was freezing my ass off though when I got out, and I didn't have time to like sit and make a fire or anything, but I just, dried off with dry clothes and just like regained my mind and kept hiking. But yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, that was
now
crazy.
Were you hiking with anybody at that point, or were you on your own out in the middle of nowhere swimming across this river?
I was out on my own. Yep. Middle of nowhere. Yep.
Talk about exhilarating.
Yeah.
That's crazy. All right. Hey, Bard, of these 3 trails, can you remember a particular moment that was the worst weather you ever encountered?
The worst weather. Well, I definitely hiked through some like snow, sleet, kind of like thunderstorms in Colorado above tree line. Those come to mind. The most recent one was the rainiest hiking day of my life on the AT, which I might have touched on earlier before when we were just talking. But my brother was hiking with me, and it rained on us for like 50 straight hours, like nonstop downpour. And it was in this section in North Carolina where it was like really rocky at the top of these hills, and it was foggy. So like a lot of it looked the same. And after like a few hours, we thought that we had got turned around, but we didn't. And like our minds were playing weird tricks on us. But that was a wet couple of days.
Now, Bard, is it safe to say that with 50 hours of pouring rain, nothing is waterproof? Any waterproof product that claims it's waterproof, you put it through 50 hours. You put it through 50 hours of downpour. It's not waterproof.
Yep. No, we were wet down to the core, and you couldn't use your phone for gut hook because it was just wet. I mean, there was nothing you could do, and it was crazy. That's one time where I valued or appreciated the value of the shelters on the AT. I don't like them generally, but that was a nice day where the end of the day we were able to like at least get under cover a little bit.
Okay. Now I understand that something special happened at the end of the AT.
Yeah.
And yeah. How before we get there, how far removed are we from that moment of finishing the AT? How long ago was that?
It was like a month ago.
Okay. So it's
like
still
a month
pretty fresh.
Month and 5 days. Yeah.
Pretty fresh. Month and 5 days, but who's counting, right?
Yeah, who's counting?
So what special event occurred on the AT, at the end of the AT?
Yeah, so at the end of my hike, I summited Katahdin, and then I hitched into Millinocket, Maine, and my brother and my girlfriend flew out to visit me because they did the same thing at the end of the CDT, and Luke was with me at the end of the PCT, so they wanted to come out and celebrate with me again. so we ended up going to what's the national park up there? Wow, I'm totally blanking.
Acadia.
Arcadia, thank you.
Yeah.
We went and spent a weekend at Acadia National Park, and I proposed to my girlfriend up on Cadillac Mountain. So yeah, that was great. That was a really fun way to just celebrate the trail and celebrate our engagement in the same trip. It was awesome. It was so fun.
Did she say yes?
Yeah, she did.
Now,
No,
had you showered? Had you showered or shaved or anything? Or you were?
Oh yeah, I was good. Yeah, we hung out for a couple days before I popped
Okay.
the question, but yeah.
You know, the true test, Bard, would have been to have proposed in your final day of the AT in your
True.
full glory of hiker trashness.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So when's the big day?
We haven't set a date yet, but it'll be about a year from now. That's what we're hoping for. So if you want to come up to Seattle, just let me know.
All right. Send me an invite. We'll make it happen. All right. Hey, Eddie, what's the next big adventure for you? What are you planning?
There's really nothing on the books. I don't look too far ahead in general, but yeah, right now it's just getting excited for marriage prep and
That's pretty big. That's a big adventure.
Oh yeah, I would say it's the biggest. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm really excited. But yeah,
I've heard, Bard, that a man is not complete until he's married. Once he's married, then he's finished.
He's finished or complete?
No, he's finished. He's finished.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm really looking forward to it all. It's going to be a blast.
Mm-hmm. And you'd mentioned the Camino as being a bucket list item. Any other items on that bucket list for you?
There's some shorter trails. Like there's one on the west coast of Vancouver Island that I've heard about that would be really fun. And that one appeals to me because I could have like a family of mine drop me off by a boat and then pick me up by boat. So that might be kind of cool to explore. But
have you given your fiance a trail name?
No, I haven't given her a trail name, but
should we think of a couple trail names, couple possibilities here? Maybe she could try them on.
Yeah, we could. Yeah, I'm trying to think.
Does she have any personality peculiarities? Any funny stories that we could work into a trail name?
I don't know. She's definitely been on some good hiking trips with me. We did the Grand Canyon rim to rim a year ago. That was really fun. She likes snowshoeing as well as regular hiking. Oh, on the CDT when she visited me, it was in Yellowstone, Wyoming, and I thought it was going to be this nice, like sunny section because it's in August, right? And her second day with me, it starts dumping snow in August, and I was just laughing. I was like, this is what would happen on the CDT, like, and we hadn't been dating too long at that time, so I was kind of nervous for her to like come out to trail and see me, because we took a little break there when I had to leave for trail. But it was so funny that it was just dumping snow and at the end of August in Wyoming, and so
she stuck with it. So she's a trooper.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that was really fun. We were able to get a big fire going that night in the snow and rain, and yeah, we made the most of it for sure.
Okay. So, well, many happy trails in your future. Happy for you.
Thanks.
All right. Hey, Bard, do you know where we are?
Where's that?
The pro tip insight of the week.
Oh,
that's right, half calf. We were at that time of the episode where Bard gets to share some trail wisdom with our listeners to make their next outdoor experience even better. So what do you have for us?
There's a lot of pro tips that I could share. I was thinking about it actually. But I think the one that's with me most recently because of the getting off the AT, my biggest tip to people would be to dry camp. You know what dry camping is?
That's where you're not near a water source. You've got to
right.
Bring your own water with you.
Exactly. So I would say dry camp more often than you feel like, or like force yourself to dry camp. Pack more water than you need at all times, so that if you come across cool camp locations during the day, you can set up there. Like, don't worry if you only did 8 miles that morning or whatever. Just set up there if it speaks to you. And then like further on that, people on the AT, I urge them to get away from the shelters. People get sucked into hanging out at the shelters too much, and I don't enjoy that. I only camped at shelters like 4 or 5 times probably, and I was in my tent kind of away from the shelter. But yeah, I had some amazing views because of not doing that. Like, it's so much fun to camp up on like near a cliff where you can watch the sunset and have your dinner, or you know, some of my favorite memories that come into mind, like in these fleeting moments throughout the days, are cool campsites like Goat Rocks Wilderness in Washington State comes to mind, and stuff in the high Sierras, and yeah, so I'd say dry camp more, or at least go up. You can be by lakes and rivers and stuff, but get away from boring camp locations, I guess.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, you're out there, you might as well take full advantage. Get away from the boring areas and get to the epic areas.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So there you have it. That's it. This episode is just about in the books. Hope our listeners enjoyed our time with Bard. Want to thank him for joining us this week. Eddie, how can our listeners keep up with you on social media, and where can they find updates on your latest adventures?
Yeah, I just have the one. I have Instagram, just at Eddie Janicki. Yeah, feel free to follow along.
Okay. Remember to check out the pod on social media as well. We are on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And if you have comments or clips you want to share, you can send it to me at johnfreakymuir@gmail.com.
The Adventure Media Recommendation.
Bard, I'm also looking to you to share a recommendation for a book, a movie, documentary, YouTube channel, something that's going to help keep our listeners connected to the outdoor adventures. We're calling this our Adventure Media Recommendation. What do you recommend for us?
So can this be like fiction or like?
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, for me, the best outdoor books of all time are the Lord of the Rings. So that's number one. I just got to get that one out of the way.
And Bard, stop right there for a second, because I have to confess that about, 3 weeks ago, I was on my Kindle and I said, you know what? I wonder if the Lord of the Rings is on Kindle Unlimited. And sure enough, it was. I have just finished Return of the King. So I'm fully feeling that recommendation. Awesome set. Took me back to my childhood.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Great recommendation. What else? You sound like you had another one coming.
The author Cormac McCarthy, if you know who he is, like one of the more recent books I read was by him, The Crossing, and I listened to it on audiobook when I was hiking through New Mexico on the CDT, and that was really cool because the character in that book is kind of just meandering through the Southwest, through New Mexico and Texas, and yeah, I just that was fun to listen to while you're hiking. So I would encourage people to listen to books that are good for where you're hiking. Maybe it's kind of a fun way to do it. And
so if you're doing the TA in New Zealand, listen to Lord of the Rings.
Yeah,
right? That's where it was
filmed.
Go. Perfect. And if you're doing the PCT or the CDT, listen to The Crossing by Cormac McCarthy. Fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. Both of those are great recommendations.
What have we not asked you?
And now, before we wrap things up, I got just one more segment for you called What Have I Not Asked You That You're Dying to Tell Us About? What did we miss tonight, Eddie?
I don't know. I can't think of anything. You asked good questions. I think we covered a lot. Yeah. What about you? Is there anything else you're burning to ask?
Yeah. Are you guys planning on kids?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Legend and I, we talked about people who name their kids after some kind of character or trait that they want them to grow into.
Okay.
Yeah, we kind of lamented the fact that neither one of us were named by our parents. We weren't named Napper. I mean, that'd be a good thing to become a good napper.
Yeah.
In any discussion of names at this point?
A little bit. It'll be something more traditional. I don't think it'll be like a like a trail name or something. Yeah. Well, actually,
Oh, that you know what? That's a great point. I mean, if I wonder if there's a married couple out there who are both triple crowners who had they went full bore, bought into the whole culture and lifestyle, and named their kids trail names. Just
Yeah.
Hi, meet my son Cheese, and
this is my son Ginger Balls.
Ginger Balls, right? Naps, Little Skittle. Yeah, the possibilities are endless.
Yeah. Do you have kids, Doc?
I have three. The one the transitions or the introductions to the segments, that's half calf.
Oh, nice. That's your daughter?
That's my daughter. Yeah, my youngest daughter. I've got a son, Jukebox, and my oldest daughter. She's not interested in trails, so I don't have a trail name for her. Yeah. I have other names for her, believe me, but not a trail name. All right. Hey, that is a wrap from the John Freaking Muir studio. Any shout outs to friends and family, Bard?
Yeah, shout out to all my friends and family. You all know who you are.
Well done. Well done. All right. Well, hey, thank you for tuning in. Always remember, the trail is the trail. Doesn't care if you want to go downhill. It doesn't care if it's almost dark and you're looking for a campsite. It doesn't even care if you're doing your best to try and do some platinum blazing. The trail is the trail. Embrace the suck.
Yes.